Having dedicated my life to lead young people, I have discovered the church has always shown great propensity to caring for the youth of the church. It must be remembered that most of the early pioneers were of youth age, even in their teens. The record of including the youth and organizing them in the fledgling movement gave clear evidence and indication of the practice afforded the youth of the church. The practice and results of the intense interest of those days should be an example for the present generation to follow. The youth did not sit idle either. The beauty of it all is that the young people just did not sit, expecting the adults to do everything for them. And on the other hand, the adults were not excluding the youth of the day. It is understood that resistance from the adults were minimum or non-existent. We could rather believe the youth were encouraged to innovate, to try something new, and they had the support of church leaders. If there is something we could learn from the past, it is exactly this. Ellen White and others constantly encouraged the organization of youth movement, and many of the things happening then were due to her encouragement. The youth of the day saw the need, and they took the initiative to satisfy such need. They did not expect payment, nor did they have to fight for established leadership in order to get something done. While Ellen White was in Australia, she made numerous calls for the youth to be formally organized and involved in the mission of the church. This was not because the youth were uninterested, but because there was nothing formal to guide, help, and promote more youth involvement. There were many attempts, as mentioned before, names that have flown through history. The youth were involved, but not in an organized manner. And so many sporadic initiatives were started to achieve the goal of youth ministry. They could not sit idle by while they were convinced Jesus was coming. They could not see fellow young people were perishing in sin, and they did not do anything to save them. The Lord was working in getting a formal organization in place. For in several places, attempts were made to organize functionally youth organizations. These were called young people societies. The notion was that for effective missionary work, however, boys and girls needed to be separated. So the earlier societies were formed in boys' clubs and girls' clubs. Very famous names in organizing these societies in the US. We know. The organizers noticed that when it came to functioning missionary work, gender differences are not of value, and the Lord can use both male and female. It is most to be noted that one of the early organizers of a society, a formal society in the Church of Adelaide in Australia was A.G. Daniels, who later became GC president, and thus far is the one having served the longest in that position, coming from youth ministry. Why is it so important to have youth societies? They were eager to have an active part in the preparation of the world for the coming of the Lord. And the watchword of those days was to work for Jesus to come in this generation. Youth societies were not to entertain or to babysit the youth. They were to prepare them for service to God and humanity. Every youth society meeting had some specific items on the agenda. These items promoted biblical knowledge, spiritual growth, and besides, the youth program also was mainly intended to prepare the youth for active participation in general in the church and in society by learning how to speak and act in public, how to follow ethical models of interaction, and above all, to be true representatives of Jesus Christ. Our times? Oh, times have changed. Practices have been modified. But the aim and the goal of youth society remains the same. Even the name can change, but these remain the same. And it is to prepare the youth for church activity, church life, and to be involved in the saving of souls, especially peers that are not easily reached by others. Youth societies were an innovative way of doing missions, internal and externally. They were not afraid to innovate. They were not afraid to try new things. They were not afraid to adapt to the days and times they were living in. This is the challenge we face today. A challenge of a church that understands the youth challenge, a church that allows the youth to be innovative, a church that embraces creativity, and a church that allows space for the youth to be Christian youth, aware of the mission and willing to use all their talents, all the information they possess, and the knowledge they have, all this to prepare a people for the coming of the Lord in this generation. May youth societies blossom wherever they are. May the church embrace this organization. May the youth of today do as the youth of those days and also discover a need and use their talents, use their information, use their inspiration to satisfy these, preparing a generation, preparing a people for the coming of the Lord in this generation.